so let's start, shall we? Okay, Mushtaq. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Intercultural Competence guest speakers session at EVO21. Today, we are having our special speaker, our guest, Dr. Yuliya Shtaltovna. Let me tell you something about her. She is a lifelong learner and teacher with over 14 years of experience in higher education, linguistics, and communication skills. She currently serves 3 Berlin applied science universities as a freelance lecturer of professional English, business communication, academic writing, and scientific method courses. Over 11 years of teaching at universities in Ukraine, she rose to the level of associate professor, thesis supervisor, and deputy chair of scientific management, and was closely involved in research, methodology, curriculum, and syllabus design. She also organized conferences and university events and contributed to the internationalization of higher education. She is now a board member for English Language Teachers Association Berlin-Brandenburg, and she provides media support for Global Change Days. Dr. Shtaltovna is the author of several research papers on the democratization of education and of English language, with a focus on intercultural communication and corporate learning and development. She's also a dedicated academic, business English communication and soft skills coach for exam candidates, IT companies, and HR specialist. Thank you for being here with us, Yuliya. Over to you.
It is such a pleasure to be here, and after such an extensive presentation, I'm humbled to start my slides, because I really think that now I need to skip a few of them. So it would be lovely to start here. Okay. First of all, welcome to the EVO21. I think this is an amazing way for the professional development specialists to get together and discuss and learn and find new perspectives, new ideas, new things to be together and to learn together. And for those who know me, live and learn is the philosophy behind what we do. And if you could tell me if you can see my slides presenting already. I'm a bit, yeah, they're visible.
Yep,
perfect.
they're visible.
Yeah, because I'm not really used to handouts. So if there is some kind of misunderstanding, please let me know so that you feel nice to do it. So it's always a pleasure to talk to teachers, trainers, and lifelong learners. This is what we are. This is what characterizes us from any other audience. And when we're talking about cultural paradigms today, and there's intercultural communication, is so important to keep in mind the very idea that we come to communicate together, right, between our cultures, within our paradigms. So this is something that we will be focusing on. After such a presentation, I will skip my intro. Feel free to join me here on LinkedIn, so you will find this. I'm welcoming everybody. And since my teaching experience was already proclaimed in such a nice way, so I will just skip this slide. What I want to start together is by defining, right, the communication, which is essential in how we live, how we work, how we love, how we discuss, how we upgrade, how we develop, and so on. But this is the very question when we say about communication together. We need to understand who is we, who is us, and every class we give, that's a different set of people who we're talking about us. When we refer to people, we normally tend to have this us versus them approach. So let's first see who is us, what is that in this case, and who is us in this very class, right? So I really hope I can do this with you. I want to get to know where do you come from, and what's your cultural background. So if it is possible, I will try to share the link for the Padlet, so that we do a little kind of communication here in the chat. Here is the Padlet. You should be able to address it, and what you can do. Right, so you can just enter the link, click on this, add a post, and try to write where you come from. So I come from Dnipro, Ukraine, and we can see where all of the people from today come from. I can write a couple words here. Yuliya, I don't know, 36 years old, teacher trainer. So if you can do a couple of the words like this, we can create a beautiful map of all of us together. People in Munich, right? Zilke is from Munich. We have Nicole. No, we have, yeah, Nicole from Costa Rica. We have person from Kolkata. You can add it and add your name. Abhinav from Hyderabad. Beautiful. Kirsten from Bochum. Hi, Kirsten. And this is a nice way to show that we come from different places and we have very different backgrounds. And what I really love doing with international students is showing them that they come from all over the world, from across the globe. But is this something that defines who we are? Right now, we know that this is we have a person from New Zealand, now residing in Italy. Yeah, you are coming specifically to the next question. If you haven't seen or have seen the YouTube video, TED video on don't ask me where I'm from, ask me where I'm local. So here you can just try to get another color as an exercise or as a collaboration activity with your students, and try to understand where they live, where they come from, and what happens when we define the group. So this is something that we can try to understand, that yes, everybody is different. You can do the same kind of the forms or any other digital tool that you love to ask about their age, their ethnicity, their language. Well, not necessarily you would be asking about religion and sexual orientation in this way, but this is something that we form our understandings, and we bring in the baggage with us all together, and we're sitting in the same room, even if it is a Hangouts room or Zoom room or anything like this, with the whole set of our identity going to the layers. And whenever we have the connections, the firing of the neurons that comes to we as the people of teaching profession. So it just fires up to your professional status, right? Or we as Ukrainians will understand that, okay, so it just gets the connection, creates the bridge in the neurons, but also in the connection with other people. And the same situation goes when we're talking about them, right? So we normally try to divide who is us and who is them to be able to understand where to build the bridge and where the bridge can be started building right from. So this is something that we always keep in mind when we are doing the intercultural communication training, and this is not necessarily what people have in mind when they start communicating and collaborating. So the topic today was what is a cultural paradigm? We all are so different. We all come from different countries, from different educations, from different backgrounds, different historical epochs, right? So, for example, every next generation can come from the same city, but before or after the events that change it, that all becomes the cultural paradigm that defines us. So it's nothing new. It's nothing there's nothing that we didn't inherit from the ancestors, the cultural ancestors. So it all comes from the understanding what is normal, what is true, what is by default, what are the things, what are the normal things. Oh, that's not normal. Oh, that's probably not us. That's not the paradigm we are in. So this is something that heavily influences us, even though we are 21st century, you know, millennial people, or people who are chased by the millennials coming up. This is another thing to talk about, right? So depending on the topic of the intercultural communication you come to a webinar or to speak or to a talk, what I see is that a lot of them concentrate on international ideas rather than between the different age groups or between different other cultural things, because it is a bit easier to present, it is better researched, and you can see what is happening. Right now, I would really like to get involved with the chat. So what are our paradigms? What is something that defines us? What is the paradigms that you can say is our? Can you chat? Nicole loved the exercise. Perfect. Can you chat in here? What is our paradigms? What defines that we belong? You can either chat or you can open up your mic. What is a paradigm? That's a good question. That's a good question. That is something that defines what is normal, what is all right, what is in order, what is perceived as not threatening, something that unites. So what it can be.
Can I join with the mic, Yuliya?
Please do, Christina.
Yeah, you know that it's a question I ask my students all the time, but it's funny to be asked by you. And then I realize how difficult it is, because I guess paradigms are like water to fish. They're what is so around us that it's very difficult to see them ourselves, because it seems obvious to us until we go somewhere else, or we're with people with different paradigms from somewhere else or another time.
That's true. So it becomes a very difficult question. So it becomes a question like, do I actually know? Do I have a prepared answer? Do you agree? So it's like a question like, who are you? And then there is always like, what you're asking? I'm a teacher. What else? I'm Ukrainian. I work at the universities or something like. So then we always try to understand what is all right to say in this specific place to this specific people. What will be treated as not strange, as appropriate, as all right, and as a norm, right? So for example, you kindly shared my profile, and then I was trying to weigh every word that says what am I, how it's going to be perceived by a community of teachers who got together to talk and to learn more about intercultural communication. How does it relate? So basically the way we are trying to build our representations of ourselves heavily define on who we are talking to. A kid, a five-year-old kid who knows me as a a person who comes from the mobile phone, because she hasn't seen me for 2 years and she's now 3.5 years old. So she only knows that I come from the telephone because I only get connected to my niece through Skype, right? So, and whenever, like, how am I supposed to tell her what am I? How am I supposed to tell my parents what am I doing and what kind of the soft skills, intercultural communication, coaching, whatever is a part of my life? Well, there should be always a basis for understanding. Requires an extent of self-knowledge, self-awareness, that's true. But also, what are you ready to say when you're going to the bar in the Friday, God bless the times when it was possible? What do you say when, what is appropriate in this specific moment? So it's not such an easy question, right? We can start getting all the research back and trying to bring in the levels of culture. What am I as a person? What is my internal dimension, external dimension, organizational dimension? Well, I'm the reviewer at the International Academic Journal on Skills Development. What is relevant? So why we are puzzled so much is that because we are so many representations, and they're all true, but it takes a moment to get prepared before you're going to the audience or to the job interview or to the new class. What specific information would be relevant? So that's why we have always a question: what would build the basics for building a bridge towards this specific audience or person? So yeah, of course, the everything you can see here that comes from celebrating a culture is trying to understand also that every one of us has this background in all the layers. And one of the ideas of the intercultural competence is keeping this in mind and keeping this open, that wherever we are, we represent those beams from all the different levels: professional, corporate, family, individual, national, habits, hobbies, content, division, seniority, depending where it leads us and where it can build the bridge or where it can set a fire. So this is something that we share with Christina. We teach the same class with her, and I'm super happy she came to support me. That's actually something that she created here. So paradigms influence ethics, but what is ethics? Ethics is the moral, the what is right, what is wrong, what is okay, what is expected, what is not expected. Then we come to the idea that what we think is all right is not threatening, is appropriate or not appropriate, influences our policies, our politics, how we present, what is the rules of communication, the rules of collaboration, and how we set up the outer world. So we have those ideas that embed one into another, like circle within a circle within a circle, that creates the world perception. Just like we perceive ourselves in the space, we perceive ourselves in a culture, and that's why we love traveling so much. We can just, and we miss it so much under the quarantine times, that we can just transport ourselves, I don't know, to the southern Italy and see that they have completely different ethics, policies, paradigms, culture codes, communication codes, and so on. So what influences our paradigms then? Brief question. What influences our paradigms? We have very rich communication here. Can I ask you this question, and we'll come back then to the answers later. What influences our paradigms? Environment, media, school, experiences. Maybe more specific. the way we were raised, the background, our parents, grandparents, if we were allowed to go outside and play in the neighborhood, or we were supervised. Right now there is a research that school age students or like pupils, they do not have this freedom to go outside and communicate, so they don't know what does it mean to be raised by the background, by the people around. So they just are brought to school and brought from school, so they're missing the social part so much. What gives confidence to me creates a sense of belonging. This is a beautiful one. We come from different paradigms, but we have forged our own. This is simply beautiful. Okay, let me come back here. The next slide is another part of the research, that it is also the national things like food and drink, but also international things like food and drink, local things, global things, the objects and tools, how we are shaped by having the cell phone can already shape our paradigm. So it is easier for me to ask a person or directly ask a Facebook, okay, I need help from Facebook. What should I do in this situation? That becomes our immediate responses, and this is how we communicate, because this is all right, we've seen it. Or if you already know, are not shaped by this tool, so it won't be even the idea to ask random people in the Facebook, what am I supposed to do in this situation? The problem with language, how much language shapes who we are. So we can go back to Wittgenstein and to the whole philological, turn that says that the language forms how we perceive the reality, or the reality is perceived depending on the language we have. But this is a huge part of the philosophy of the beginning of the previous century. But also we have the stories, we have the curiosity that was formed or was not formed when we were reading the books, when we were going to the summer camps and having this campfire stories, and maybe some kind of the horror stories, and as well the greater community as we're doing the professional organizations, associations, business English, professional English, local, then depending on this, that all brings us to the sense of the community. We seek people who are all right, normal, adequate for us, right? So that becomes our value basis, the arts that we know or do not know, and the skills and traditions, that all can be an endless, and each topic can get, you can give not only one webinar or seminar, or a couple of books or collections of books. There are like huge number of the things. But this is something that I wanted to bring to this. Do we have the understanding at every time of the moment we communicate with another person that not only me is such a rich person with all these values and in all the different levels that we already discussed, but the other person is too. Yesterday we were watching another beautiful TED talk. You can try to find it very quickly. What does it mean to be wrong? Beautiful talk which says that there is no such a feeling to be wrong. You don't know, because you feel right even if you're wrong. But this is the very same sense of understanding that we feel that what we adopted is right because, well, this is me, this constitutes my personality, I'm a valid, real, normal personality, so this is all legit, true, reasonable, acceptable. But again, this is something that, do we have the sense that the other person we're talking to has the very same understanding and at every moment of the time? This is something that we do when we teach students. We try to show that this is all shapes all our communication. What is normal for Nordic countries in the environmental communities and their policies can be shocking in somewhere else in the world where it's not adopted. But it's not adopted because it's not a part of a culture. It's not a part of a culture because it is not a part of a policy, and policies are not there because it's not a part of ethics. And ethics means that this is not a part of our norms and beliefs. So if you go to any part of the Pestal here, you can see that the attitude to tax, the attitude to social distribution, what is all right in one country can be very different. That's why business is not scalable as easy as all the businessmen would prefer to be, because you have different legislation, you have different social rules, you have different economic status. There are so many things that influence our everyday communication. So what happens as well is when we say that I come from any country, right? So here you have the dimensions of different variation, cross-cultural variation in the world. And I don't know if you are aware of Professor Engelhardt and Christian and Dr. Welsel. So they created a chart, and they've been doing this research for more than 40 years now. So they try to understand that there are two major dimensions, how our cultures, bigger national cultures, are formed. So we have the survival values and self-expression values. Basically, this is a Maslow pyramid put on one line, right? From survival to self-expression. So to me, that is like simply the Maslow thing. So where are you? Where is your country on this scale? And then we have traditional values, which means what is okay to do that, or parents, cultures, grandparents, companies, universities, rules, or individual choice, rational values. So basically, you can come up with the kind of the cultures. For example, I don't know, very traditional cultures, most probably somewhere in the Middle East, and some of them are on survival level, some of them are not really there, so they are much to the right in this description. So we normally think, okay, so this is a very traditional society, or this is a very liberal society because they have this liberty to make choice and to express themselves. What is interesting, though, in this case, that they are discussing not only where you are in this thing as the national culture, but also that this is something that, again, this is the Christina's idea to bring, where is the dominant idea, where is the dominant, who is the dominator in the culture, right? Is there a traditional ideas, or is this the cultural norm? Who creates this dominance? And depending where you're in the globe, there might be a very different ideology. Who says it's okay? Who says it's all right? And when we're talking about the dominance or hegemony, so there we can look back to which countries are hegemonic. So Portugal, oh, seriously? Are they hegemony? Yeah, but they were in the 15th century. They dominated the world in navigation. When you say, okay, of course, China, but China is considered to be the cultural hegemon in 7th to 4th century BC, when they had the Eastern Julian dynasties, right? They are trying to become a new hegemon right now, and they're trying to bring back to the golden part of their history. And then you say, oh, Spain Spain a cultural hegemon, military one, economic one? Oh yeah, but it was in 15th, 16th century, up to the moment when the Dutch control was taken on the money and the credit. And then you have, well, of course, we know UK, France, Germany, but this is only the part of the 18th, 19th century, before the World War, when they were trying to introduce the new technology and to bring in the supremacy there. So what happened in the 20th century is that we have a very new world order after the US and USSR were trying to compete. And right now, US and China is trying to get into this cherry pie. And most probably after the new event, we have the new hegemon, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, who are trying to compete for the Mars. Maybe they will be the cultural domination thing. So one more thing to think here is that we are not only the ones that we present the culture, we also present what was the dominance here, because there has always been a part of who dominated who, and most probably those are the very difficult points to talk about. So I don't know, most probably those would be some topics not to start the conversation with when we're talking about the paradigms. So here is the American cultural hegemony starter part. If you haven't seen this on Reddit, there is a very interesting talk on, not talk, but subreddit on starter packs. And here is the number of logotypes that form our understanding. What is the paradigm shift then? So we know the boomers, people who are 50, 60, 65. So they have completely different set of those logotypes, of those ideas that form their first choices. They are normal. Why do you, for example, I don't know, here you have, what kind of the car do you buy, or what kind of the communication do you choose? Then, for example, people who are 35 to 54, the Generation X, would have completely different set of the first choices of where do they get information, how they get the normality, and what is normal to them is not normal to the Generation Z and millennials. So completely different information, completely different consumption here, but also how we perceive information, right? How much of the video content, how much is of the news, everything like this could be the generation-based as much as the national-based. Then you can get to the local level. Then you can make such a research in your company, in your institute, in your university. So this all represents that there are so many levels, layers, structures, differences, and that is that's specifically what makes the world beautiful. Another question to you: what makes our paradigms change? The wheel is new for Helene. Is this graphic inconsistent with iceberg graphic, or are we just the wheel? I wrote under the slide the source for the wheel and for other graphic. So I normally advise to go and read more about any graphic that comes to the interest, right? And I think as well, right now in the 21st century, everybody tries to create their own graphic, their own vision, and try to stand out. And everybody's creating the frameworks which are working. So a set of numbers and a set of I don't know, kind of fancy words, and try to sell it as a trademark. So I think it is it is still fair to show the source and try to say, okay, so these are the things how we are viewed, how we are seen, and whether they are consistent or not, that might be a good question. True. Change of geographic location. Yeah, relocation normally changes us a lot because we have to adapt. The adaptation part is a very big topic in the intercultural communication and adaptation. Change of age. Do you mean growing up and coming to another generation? We normally grow up with our generation as well. For example, as a teachers and trainers, we most probably talk to a younger generation a little bit. And this is how we learn a lot from them. Open-mindedness, beautiful. Curiosity. Curiosity is another topic that we either learn at school or yeah, okay, so the positive reinforcement and the negative reinforcement. If you survive after that, then you're lucky to have curiosity for the whole life on. Okay, what makes our paradigms change? This is Engelgard-Wenzel cultural map, and you can try to see that they try to create the countries and they try to locate it. They try to do the Latin America, African Islamic countries, Orthodox. You can see Ukraine is on the left here. So that means in 2010, we were close to the survival mode. Here you can see Baltic, Confucian. So the Germany is over here. Maybe you can find your own country. In Italy here, there was a person from New Zealand living in Italy now. So what I normally, not normally, what I did with the previous class is that I tried to ask the international students to find where they are and try to think if they agree with this or not. And then there is a lot of discussion, like how can you say that Mexico is much more on the self-expression value than, I don't know, Brazil? When we don't know the cultures, for example, I know like 3 people from Mexico and 2 people from Brazil. I don't know the culture, I know only the individuals. For me, it's very difficult to say. But when I have, for example, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, or maybe I lived in France, I lived in Italy, I lived in Macedonia, now I live in Germany, I can see how this all relies to. What actually is mind-boggling for the students was to show that this is how much we change as the culture. So this is the very new 2020 newest research by the same group within the same structure, and you can see that Ukraine was over here, and now it is way more to the, so it made much more progress from survival to self-expression values. So we're trying to get up to the Maslow pyramid here. As well, it's very nice if you go to the World Value Survey where they posted it, and this is their official site. There is even the video that if you have time, you can watch with the students or try to learn. It's just moving all the way in all the directions, depending on the government, depending on the situations that happened. We had 2 revolutions after that. So, for example, if you think what Iran was in the 50s and what Iran is now, so it is a complete change of the perspective. So any other culture, what is what brings a revelation, my apologies, is when I try to give this idea that it's not only the countries that change, it is the cultures that change. But because cultures have so many layers, that means all the other cultural points, levels, and aspects, they also change all the time. So when we grow in the career, so our seniority, industry, communication also grows. So as well, our religion it also evolves. So basically, we are evolving into all the dimension and all the vectors and all the axes at the same time. And again, this is how we see the nations, but do we see this in the people who we communicate to? So for example, when I see Mushtaq, I don't know, once a month, or once in 3 times per year, maybe, I don't know, 5. So do I have in my mind that he is in the process of the constant development? He's lifelong learner, he's a very active community builder, he's teaching the soft skills. He has this growth mindset, so he grows at the same time. Do I keep in mind that he's in the process of evolving, and every person we communicate with is at the same time? Yeah. So let's talk. I will ask you this when we have the Q&A part, or you will ask me. Maybe you can try to think about these questions as well. So when we're talking about personal paradigms, not the national, not the age level paradigms, what affects, how do they affect the choices that we make every day? Do we seek validation? Do we seek approval? Do we seek permission to do things? How do we align our values, our goals with all those different ways how we are evolving every moment? What is building our cultural paradigm here? What I actually wanted to share with you, I will try to skip a couple of the slides because we're running out of time. I want to have the Q&A session with you. So you've seen the iceberg, and this is specifically a very frequently used model when we're talking intercultural communication. But here is what I found quite recently: the iceberg of the business organization, visible organization values. And just now, if you are in the business world, when we are doing the business communication to students of the IT, digital business, software engineer, and so on, so they are the agents of this new organizational culture. So they are normally told what is the strategy, the mission, the vision. These are the policies. These are our values, structures. But what actually creates is the same iceberg that we learn through communication. It becomes the business communication as well. What are the unwritten rules? What are the norms, traditions within the company? What are the perceptions? What is believed to be true or right, nice, good to have, nice to have, or abnormal? Oh no, thank you. This is something that is deeply ingrained in us. And this is all something that can bring us to the problems. And we know that these problems are something that prevents communication. So for now, I spent like half an hour talking about how complex we are, how evolving at the same time we are, how we perceive our people, how we present ourselves to other people. And there are so many levels to misunderstanding. There are so many levels to the miscommunication. What else is missing? What else is preventing? So we have the way we chose the language, the way we are distracted, what kind of assumptions do we make, what kind of the concentration, do we have the willingness to listen, to hear, to be heard? Are we receptive? Are we resourceful? Do we have an interest, a shared activity? Do we have trust? Right? So this all becomes a question of the skills. So how much we can improve ourselves, improve our students, and keep this idea in mind that this is all something that can prevent our bridges communication, and so on. So there is a question. Is there hope to be understood in this all evolving at the same time, expanding universe of everyone's paradigm? I want to share with you the Oxford-Cambridge Guide Communication representation of the communication process. Not because that this is something new, but because it was really nicely put sending the message and receiving the message, giving the feedback, interpretation, and then trying to check out what is there. Why I wanted to share this with you is that because of the circular point that can bring us to one more circle. I don't know if you've heard of nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Great research, great book. What I really saw that these two slides, they look very, very similar. The communication process, right? And trying to use the nonviolent communication at every point of the sending the message and receiving the message back. So try to see, we have here the same communication circle, but with on another level, right? Trying to say what specifically do we want to say, what kind of feeling do we want to express, what kind of need do we intend to communicate? Do we have enough freedom? Are you saying this, for example, do I have enough freedom to say something to my father, which is a confrontational, or to my husband, or to my manager, or to my, I don't know, what I can say, trainer, right? Or to my volleyball coach. So do I have enough freedom to say what I want? Do I have enough choice to bring this observation and fact and so on? So what I wanted to share with you and bring to the discussion is something that I spent the whole Tuesday creating. I tried to put these two paradigms together and try to see how they overlap through the trying to create a non-harmful. If I want to communicate with other people, my main idea is that I don't want to harm them, right? So this becomes the culture, this becomes the intent. So what's my intent? What are my needs and values? Do I have enough freedom to communicate the message to request the action, right? When I receive in the action, I have a choice how I react on this. What kind of the facts and observation is there? Do I interpret the message in the connection with my feelings? Can I see how much the feelings are connected or disconnected, or influence, or create biases, or create stereotypes here? What kind of the feedback do I want to say that, oh, that hurt, or that was a miscommunication, or that was not appropriate, or that was not the way you are supposed to talk to me, or you want to actually provide this? So this is something that comes from, you know, two different paradigms, two different frameworks, and creates the understanding how to communicate respectfully. Here is the California Association of Marriage and Family. So maybe they are the people who study how to communicate respectfully. They provide the speech filters. Yeah, but this is something that we've known through centuries. All our wisdom comes from think before you speak. But when we're speaking about intercultural communication and trying to formalize this, this becomes some kind of a understanding that we are putting the footprint. Like, what kind of judgment do I put before I say something? Is my intention good enough? Is my choice of the words, of what I want to say, when I want to say, how I want to say, the tone, the phrase, the formulation, is this good enough? The feeling, do I want, so if this is a non-violent, not harmful communication, is this the compassion that I want to bring it? Do I react or do I respond proactively? I want to create something rather than stop this. And how much empathy is involved. So here you have, can you see the person's point of view? Do we listen to answer or do we listen to hear? Right? So again, so many things that create the respectful communication, how to listen properly, so the active listening skills are here, and how not to embarrass the person, how to create the specific time. So these are the filters that we can try to create, to think before we come to the judgment, we think before we come to blaming others. So these are the stereotypes, not the stereotypes, but the paradigms that are so unique and so universal in the same time. And that's why there are so many coaching, IQ, EQ, CQ, SQ, ICQ, ISQ, so many of them. Eventually, they all say what can be said, how it can be said, so that we respect each other, we try to understand what is there, what is the formulation. This is kind of the picture that I wanted to share with you in the end. So when we don't know all those external factors, are we still judgmental? Are we still trying to judge what's right, what's wrong? Or we are curious, we are interested in what is happening. So what I wanted to share is that when we're learning together, it doesn't mean that we're learning the same thing. It means that we're learning, and this is our lesson learned by live and learn philosophy that we have behind our podcast. So if you we created this special intercultural communication podcast list, try to listen and see what is there. My main message is, when we see other people as evolving, complex, unique, and respectful as we want to be, this is a huge area to talk about, but also to practice daily. Over to you, Mushtaq. There are so many.
Thank you. Actually, yeah, it was good coverage, in fact. Okay, so we never thought that, I mean, within a session, you would be covering these many aspects. So I'm sure it will definitely help all the participants in a number of ways. Okay, and now we are ready for the QA session. So yeah, so I'm just starting one activity over here. So you can ask the questions. So Q&A is turned on. So you can just click on to ask a question and you can ask a question. So can you see that on screen? This is for the participants. You can just click on to ask a question and you can ask the question.
Mushtaq, we can.
Pardon? Okay, or you can write in the chat box. No worries.
I can read in the chat box, I think, yes.
Yeah. Sure.
I can see, I will go back a little bit because I wasn't able to follow the chat while presenting. So I think I mentioned that what Nicole said requires extent of self-knowledge and awareness to assess the situation we are in every moment of time, every thing. So yeah, that's why we have this awareness and yoga and Buddhist ideas that come to the world about being here and now, being present, being active listening. That means like you're actually listening to the person. So this all comes from here and now idea. But what is interesting is if you listen to the TED about what does it mean to be wrong? It's not only the senses of time that we are present, right? We are in the moment of time. So I'm after my coaching session and before recording my podcast doing this, right? So before, then, after, but also we are in the space, and also we are in the situation when we are always right about our assumptions. So it's right, it is to be here, now, present, and right. And this is the very thing while we are having all the stereotypes, biases, miscomprehensions, so on, because we think that at every time, because we're present, legit, and it's okay, we think that we are right to have that, to say that, to feel this. And because of this, most of the time we do not have the idea that we may be wrong or that another person can be right as well. And therefore, when we have some misunderstandings or when we understand that there is a wrong assumption, we have this a moment of the puzzle, like, oh, seriously? Do I need to rethink something? Do I need to reconsider? And then we're having this moment of, oh, wait a minute. So I need to recalculate all my brain connections, all my neuron firings into the new set of the reality. And therefore we have this awareness here, now, present, and right. And this is something that we do not question. And the more we study intercultural communication, the more we study communication, we need to find this between, right, communication between people. So the very awareness that the other people is here, now, and also right in his understanding is actually creating this beautiful metaphor of being able to connect, being able to hear, to listen, to be curious about. And this is where the bridges are all the small talk is about it, right? So you try to find the very quickest connection with the person who you don't know, so that you do not perceive them as those weird people. You try to get connected and at least have this first connection there. So I think this is all so interesting and exciting, and the more we're studying it, it sounds interesting. Okay, Kano Sneka. So, because I know this is Kristen, she says she always starts with an exercise to get students to reflect on their culture, how much they're influenced, and what they don't like about it. Yeah, people who we meet, not cultures. That's why we're talking about cultural paradigm and personal paradigm. What constitutes me, even though I'm a part of a bigger paradigm. And that's why we have layers, and that's why we have so many vectors, right? All these things that, yeah, this is not a culture, but this is a culture. And I am a part of so many cultures at the same time that you may not even know. You may not even know that I didn't know. I perceive business team as a volleyball team because this is the closest connection I can have the team to work with. I know how it works. I know how to support, how to communicate, how to protect, how to prevent, how to do this, because this is my knowledge. And this is so beautiful that it's people who we meet individually because they have their own set of things that create their own personal paradigm. Environment expense. So these are the answers. The questions. Learning new things. I think this is all the answers. Helene said, what is interesting to me to think about here as you present is that in some ways we share elements of personal life paradigm with the majority. Yes, and I'm a tiny minority. When my view is a minority one, I tend to keep quiet about it. Helene, can I ask you a question? Do you tend to keep quiet about when you are a minority, And when you're feel that you're triggered somehow, do you keep quiet when you are in minority and somebody provokes you or says something that is wrong to you? So this is a question. How much do we make choices? And what I shared with you in one of the slides is like, we make a choice to interact or not, to fight back or not, to fight, freeze, or flight, right? At every moment of our life when we have a communication with others. So this is a question about majority and minorities, how protected you feel, how confident you feel, how do you have resource, power to stand up? Do you want to stand up? Is it worth it? So I think this is also at every moment and every situation can be very different.
May I make a quick comment about that as well? I don't know Helene, but I also found her comment very interesting, and it made me think about many of my students. I have found, I've been teaching in person for many years, and compared to that, I found that students are very, it's much harder to get them to participate and interact in the online environment. They're much more passive, much more quiet. And that comment from her made me wonder if that's how they all feel all the time. Like minorities, they don't want to fight a losing battle. They don't want to make themselves embarrassed in this online environment. Somehow they feel more alienated than usual. And I thought about that circle that you showed about how we construct our personalities. And that I thought that was such a great circle to maybe have a class exercise with, where everyone fills it out for themselves. And then you say, so go off now and find someone that has one of those points similar to yours where you can build this bridge. I like how you keep using the words bridges and connections. And I think we need that more than ever because everyone is so disconnected in their houses, and we really want to fight against that feeling. And I think we can use these ideas that you've given us today to do a lot of interesting exercises with them to make them feel less like a minority and less like, oh, I'm the only one in the room that's like me, and to get to use those to create a sense of community, even though they're disconnected physically from each other. So thanks to Helen for making that comment, and thanks to you for providing these amazing slides. They're really thought-provoking.
The funny thing is that as trainers, if you think of any training that is a long-lasting training, not like one hour or, you know, like a day or a week, or if you go to summer camp, or if you go to a training session, we always have this first part of introducing, finding the person, mingling, find the person who go. If you go to the English courses, French, Italian language courses, we normally have this type of the events, right? We normally try to create the team. So the teachers of language know more than anybody else, I think, and they have the opportunity to have a legitimate exercise on that, or like part of the activity, to actually create this team building. The problem, I think, with what our students are having right now is that not every other teacher of, I don't know, in the University of Macroeconomics, or I don't know, of physics or anything like this will take time to create those teams. And maybe this is a question of a, how to say, of the program managers, if they create enough communication between people, between students before they go to class. So if you know what is happening, if you, for example, go to any coaching or any training that lasts for 6, 7, 8 weeks, even if it is online, you do have your first class of introducing what to expect from the class, who are the trainers, who are you, and then the whole seminar, webinar is getting to know each other, mingling, asking, finding, so that you at least know who you are. But when the students are sitting in the rooms and not knowing who they are talking to, this is specifically the question that I deeply refer and feel, and this is maybe something that we keep on working on.
Can I come in here for a second?
Yay, please.
Okay.
Yes.
I think Elaine actually put another very interesting comment in about that the paradigms that she and her husband had different paradigms, and then they started creating new paradigms. And those of you who are familiar with the new CFR, where it talks about pluricultural competence, it says exactly this: that if you're a skilled pluricultural communicator, you are able to establish and to create a culture for your group, a culture of communication. You define the paradigms for the group. And this is something that we need to do with every new group. In every group, I have different paradigms. I am a part of a different culture. And I think that's also what Christina is talking about, because that's very important. And this is very difficult to achieve when people are not physically together, because a lot of this happens non-verbally. This is why I force my university students to put their camera on.
Yeah.
And they achieved in my first year evening classes of engineering students, they now have this culture, they have this group. And I think this is the biggest achievement of the entire semester, because they just know each other online. But
I
they
envy
managed
you.
to establish this group culture, and it was hard work, but 10 out of 25 managed to establish this. And it is more difficult to do that when you're online. That's right. But it's not impossible.
I envy you. When you first said, Kirsten, that you demand online presence with the video on all the time, this is something that I miss for the last 11 months and 3 days of the quarantine. And
yeah, Yuliya, not all have a camera, not all put them on, but I'm in the fortunate position that I can just say either you put your cameras on or the lesson is over. And that was such a shock to them, they decided to comply. It was not maybe the nicest, but after 2 weeks, they really realized it's nicer. Yeah, but it was the first shock, because they felt like the students Christina described.
yeah.
And they just said, like, look, actually, it does make my life easier. It makes your life easier. And then they saw that they could do the bonding. They wouldn't have been able to do that without the camera.
You know what, I came up with a partial solution to this. I tried to teach less during the class and facilitate more during the class. I try to create the activities that are collaborative and send them into the breakout rooms when they feel much more comfortable. But I set the I instruct before they go to the breakout rooms that this is opportunity for you to actually see people in front of you, to meet them, to see their reaction, to talk about and to react, because you cannot do the active listening or negotiation or discussion or anything if you're not seeing the person. If you're in a smaller group, 3, 4, I normally tend not to put them into twos, because it's always then opposing and then there is opponent there. So I try to at least do 3, 4 for a discussion or something, and then have this tasks that they work within one class the same on the same tasks, and then through 2, 3, 4 communication interactions, they say that they like it because they found who they are talking to, and they know their reactions, they know their judgments, they know what and how they react, and not only through the avatar, but this is specifically what's happening not only in the online classes. This is what is happening when we are somewhere in the training or in the conference, and when you see, okay, I liked your presentation, I really want to talk to you. We have the beer, wine, dinner, anything, and here comes the question of the socializing. Networking, right? So I do have the best outcomes from the basic conference with the people who I actually talked after the presentation, who I actually communicated with. For example, Kirsten, right? We've been to how many conferences together, webinars together, but this is how we communicate in between them that creates this meaning, right? This activity. So yeah, so this is the same breakout room when you try to understand who you're talking to. Maybe more questions, Mushtaq, have you been following?
I think there is one question by. Okay, I think it is a comment. One difference of mine is physical, one is cultural, and one is philosophical, psychological. By Lane. Okay, so Lane's
Elaine today is the star of the questions.
Yeah.
Maybe you would like, Elaine, maybe you would like to ask this question. Just
Yeah, Lane.
appear to us. Yeah, I can't find it. I'm sorry.
Okay, I don't know. Oh, there you are, Elaine. Would you like to make that comment, what you wanted to refer that you wrote on the chat, the difference you talked about physical, cultural, and philosophical or psychological?
Or maybe, yeah, anybody else would like.
But Yuliya, I think it's again, Elaine raises all these important points here. Fantastic. So, and if she wants to talk about it, fine. But I think she points out one quite important thing, because we tend to go by visual clues when we look at cultures and where people come from. We think, oh, like she looks like this, she looks like that, so must be from this and that culture. And when we think people are like us and they look like us, then we never think that there are also differences that we can't see and which are more difficult to determine, because people maybe also don't want to talk about it or something like this. So yeah. But maybe Elaine, you can say something if that's what you're talking about, and just put the mic on.
Yeah, Elaine, you can turn on your mic.
If she's comfortable about it.
You really want to hear me talk about this? I'm just a participant. I'm just reacting in the chat.
Yeah, we were just asking what specifically did you mean, or can you reformulate the question, because it wasn't.
It's not a question. It's a statement. I was just trying to point out that I look and act like everybody else in this room, any old person, you know. But there are three things about me you could never guess, although some people here know me, so they know. But the things you could never guess about me that are very, very important in my daily life at all times. I keep them in mind, and they're invisible. I only reveal them when I think it's safe and appropriate, and each one separately. And I don't feel comfortable necessarily for people to know these things unless I have a certain trust level with that person. Some of my best friends don't even know one or two of these things about me. We have to keep that in mind, you know. And I'm a very exuberant, extroverted person. I love to talk and interact, but those three things, I keep them quiet.
Well, this is specifically what I was trying to say when I was saying that we are evolving in all the different level structures of the culture, right? And we're so complex, and every time we meet, we ask, what's new? What's happened? So we are asking, how much have you evolved from the previous time we met, right? And this is what intercultural competence teaches us, is that there is no set culture. We saw today I showed you the pictures of the research, which says that even the nations are not stable. We are not stable. We are all evolving at each time, every moment, in so many different, not parallel, right? Very multidimensional things that what intercultural communication teaches us is that we are always different, even to ourselves, and we are not thinking about it about other people, that they are different and they are evolving and they are so complex and multiple when we're talking to them, because we normally got connected through one thing that connects us, and we always try to have this part of the neuron to work for us as a bridge. And the more we talk, the more we have these bridges connected. And that's why it is the longer communication, the longer cooperation or friendship is just because we have so many bridges that are built in different layers. And what you're saying is, yeah, it is a beautiful thing that we are so diverse as a universe, right? As a personal paradigm, and not necessarily want to represent it.
That's right, Yuliya. We are multifaceted, right? We have different facets, and we connect through those facets and those aspects to different people, to different aspects within those people. So thank you again. We should be rounding up. Thank you again. We go back to the essential, which I think, know thyself. That is, well, Socrates, it's attributed to him, because that's the source of wisdom, right? And the better you know yourself, the better you can connect with others and accept others and be, well, develop your empathy, right? So thank you again, Yuliya. Thank you again, all participants who have made all these thought-provoking comments on the chat. We were pleased to have you all here. And well, next week will be our last session of our Intercultural Competence EVO session. Thank you very much, Yuliya.
It was such a pleasure to be here.